Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. You just heard what's Hine Matov, how good it is that we're here together. But as we start, I just want to give us a few notes of how the evening is going to go, because none of us have done this before. So first of all the music that you hear, all the words are either sourced directly from Jewish liturgy, from the Torah itself, or they are written by Rich Hordinsky, and one sung by John Bunyan. And then all of the sound of it has all been crafted by Rich Hordinsky and then sung by this amazing team here. And so other sort of basics that you're going to hear is that there's going to be an intermission at 10 minutes, for 10 minutes, and we're going to reset our stage. So at that point, you'll understand it's intermission, and we'll have you help turn your chairs around to refocus. And part of that is the journey that we're sort of taking together from up on high to down together. And then there'll be ice cream in that intermission time too. All the flavors are leveled out. It's from Buzzed Bull. And the reason it's ice cream is because the holiday that we're honoring tonight, usually you commemorate with dairy foods, and so that's your dairy. Good luck, there's no lactate out there. And then I think another just one important note is that we use all kinds of words that might work for you and that might not. And one word that can be a little difficult for people who are coming from different backgrounds is the word God. And so I urge you, as you're hearing God or hearing Torah, you're hearing those words, to think of it as the most expressive, expansive way of hearing that. So if one of those words doesn't work for you, maybe think of it more like, do I believe in connection? Like, is there something I can say yes to, something I can believe in that sort of works under that title? Because that's sort of the point of what we're doing. And to get to that, there's an invitation as part of it, that this holiday, Shavuot, is about receiving, it's revelation, it's about the story of the people on Sinai sort of receiving this Torah that we go forward. And so what we're hoping from this process is not to operate from a traditional or even a liturgic space, but one that asks us to receive, which is what the holiday is asking us to do. What does it actually take for our hearts to be open, to love, to truth, to whatever changes come our way? And so to sort of give that grace to us in this moment of just opening your heart to possibility. So Shavuot, this holiday of receiving, is often used interchangeably revelation and receiving. And the teaching is that each of us, in some capacity, was standing at Sinai, that it's understood as a great metaphor in that way, that our souls are connected at Sinai and through this receiving. And then every year on this holiday, we receive Torah again according to our own capacity. So according to our own capacity, what we need to learn, what Torah needs to be revealed to us. And I think that's why we're focusing on what does it take to receive truth in that space. And that it's true not just because I'm making it up and like I have a title and I can. It's actually just how Judaism teaches revelation. That the first time we tell the story of Sinai, it's that God, with God's actual finger, wrote the 10 Commandments down. Right? That's the first time. And then we tell the story a second time and we say, actually, lots of people wrote that. There was a Torah created by Moses and then handed it down, so there was a little separation. We tell it again, and all of a sudden, we don't just receive the 5 books or the 10 Commandments, but we also receive oral Torah, so Mishnah, Talmud. And so I think that even in our tradition, in the most classical understanding of it, the story changes with every generation. There's an emergence, and it's not that one becomes higher than the other, but it's added. It's like the yes and of it, that each story sort of exists for itself. And what it's trying to do is just open us a little farther to get us closer to the truth. So then I would ask, like on this Shavuot, what's the version of that story? How do we even tell it? Does it stop at oral Torah? Does it stop at the Talmud, like centuries ago? Or does it keep going in some capacity? And I think one answer might be svara, which is, in Sanskrit, it's just the word breathing. But in the Hebrew, the Jewish translation, understanding of it, it's like hypothesis, like our best guess. And our best guess is a form of knowledge. That it's not rooted in absolutism, but it sort of has these wings of possibility. And so then, if you're just in this guessing hypotheses world, how do you actually know when you've encountered real Torah? And I think one way we try to tell that story is we say, well, if you see something like a miracle, then you'll know. The Red Sea parts, and then we're like, cool, but what's next? We really miss how it was comfortable in Egypt. And then we have Sinai, and somehow we continue to be other things. That we have all kinds of stories where we're supposed to be listening and then get it and keep going, and yet we need to keep learning it again and again. And it's not just in the Torah that we're doing it this way. We do it in our own lives all the time, that we dismiss miracles as happenstances of things that we just can't explain. And we miss the story all the time. I think the story that we're missing there is that we have discerning hearts, and all true truth, real Torah, comes from that discerning heart. Like the call is coming from inside the house, that kind of thing. So I think it's easy to assume that wisdom that we're teaching about in these old texts isn't something inherent. And I think that we miss something when we forget that wisdom is contained in our own humanity. But culture or patriarchy or violence blocks us from that truth. That each of us are capable of our own receiving, our own revelation. And that just like John Bunyan teaches in the next song, all of us in our own way are writers of Torah.
Room, the men smoke cigarettes and incorporate their fantasies as scripture, such as the seduction of Lot by his 2 hot daughters. In the writer's room. In the writer's room, the men create a God who talks to Adam and Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Aaron. The men have God talk to even Jonah, the Nebuch these writers have swallowed by a fish. In the writer's room, the lone woman slugs strong coffee and incorporates her fantasies as scripture, such as Yael driving a stake into a man's head because he barged into her tent expecting what men expect. Room, the men smoke cigarettes and write action-adventure tales of floods and plagues and God destroying the life of his most righteous creation on a bed. In the writer's room, the lone woman slugs strong coffee and writes action-adventure tales of a queen betrayed by lascivious men and a queen who saves her people from a man drunk on power in a silly hat. Room, the men smoke cigarettes and read the woman's stories. They accept them because of war and blood and death and naked dancing, which blinds them to the themes of persistence and resistance and badassery. The men save them for a spinoff. In the writer's room.
It makes me laugh. Silly hat. It's a good line. So I want to teach you a little chant. Some of you will know it, and it's a variation of a traditional Jewish piece of music. Before I do, when Miriam and I were discussing the holiday and talking about receiving and prayer, and it just brought up all these feelings that I have, like a really complicated relationship with praying. And like, I kept thinking of this joke about, it was actually in one of those funny videos. Do you guys know the internet? There's funny videos on there. This was one without a cat. But there's this guy who's like supposed to be God, and he's got his assistant, and God's phone keeps ringing and ringing. And his assistant's like, aren't you going to pick that up? And he's like, oh, it's people praying. And he's like, well, you have to answer it. And the God guy's like, why? He's like, say somebody's sick. They pray, they get better. Who gets the credit? Me. If they die, who gets blamed? Not me. So there's a part of me that always, like in my tradition, they sort of set the idea of, a prayer where you sort of have there's traditionally sort of like a beginning of flattery. And then there's a part where you're requesting goods and services. And they sort of set that part aside and say, don't really think about that. But there's part of me that can't really set it aside so easily when I think that like in every contemplative philosophy, religion, whatever, there's some sort of something that looks like prayer, right? And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a therapist, and I teach a few guitar lessons, and I said, some of my guitar students, they're pretty emotional. Like I had a grown-ass man cry when he stopped taking lessons a couple weeks ago. And he was like, well, it's because you're listening. And I'd never thought about that. And I stumbled on a spot where someone said, prayer is mostly about, or maybe not mostly about, but prayer is sometimes about just being able to imagine that someone else is listening. And that can be pretty powerful, I think, in and of itself. So I'm going to teach you this little piece. So the lyric is Ainenu, Ainenu, Viom Korenu. I'm probably saying it all wrong. Apologies in advance. But I'd like for you to sing it with me. And we'll do this a few times over the evening. So what I'd like to do is do it as kind of like a response thing. I'll do it once, and I'm not a great singer, as you will discover progressively throughout the night. But I can be every man for you. Anenu, Anenu, Gvom Korenu. Now you try it. Anenu, Anenu, Gvom Korenu. Beautiful. Anenu, Anenu, Gvom Korenu. We'll try it without the instruments. Anenu, Anenu, Gvom Korenu. And before we do it one more time, if I have this right, it's basically saying answer us, answer us, answer us. And then the last line is so interesting because I think the last line is translated call out to me. What an interesting idea that like you're calling out, but what you really want is for someone to call out to you. I don't know. Let's try it again. There's your note. Anenu, Anenu, Gvom Korenu. Anenu, Anenu, Gvom Korenu.
As we go into this next piece here, it's called Uri Uri. And what I hope you'll see is that chant of Anenu, Anenu Yom Korenu, that this is the day that it's coming to, that we'll be responding when we hear something that works for us. And this next one comes from the Sabbath liturgy, usually from Lecha Dodi Uri, Uri, Shir Zabari. And there's lots of ways you can translate it, but I just found one recently that said, bestir yourself. Bestir yourself, for the light has come. Arise, shine, and be awake.
but there's work enough, but there's work here enough, but there's work enough for both of our heads. 39 days, 39 nights, there's no moon on the horizon, no end in sight. 39 days, 39 nights, comes a aboard, comes a aboard. Nothing I can't bear witness to, nothing too small to see, nothing that doesn't matter, nothing but you and me. But there's work enough, but there's work here enough, but there's work enough for both of our heads. 39 days, 39 nights, there's no moon on the horizon, no end in sight. 39 days, 39 nights, comes a aboard, comes a aboard. To walk without expecting, to move along the road. There really is no limit to the garden of the world. There's work enough, but there's work here enough, but there's work enough for both of our heads. 39 days, 39 nights, there's no moon on the horizon, no end in sight. 39 days, 39 nights, comes a aboard, comes a aboard.
When I was 12 years old and the former Soviet Union was unfolding in its way, like many cities, our city welcomed a family. Our family happened to be from Ukraine, and they had a girl who was the same age as me. And so, of course, when they came out of the airport, we were there to meet them and help them set up their home. And her name was Ellen. So Ellen and I were just a few months apart. She didn't speak any English when she came off the plane. And I actually remember giving her this like teddy bear that we were both too old for, but like my mom had bought it for me to give to her, and she was like, "Thanks for this awkward toy." Like she had this like cheerleader energy even then, and when she was 13, so 9 months after she had arrived in the United States, not only did she speak perfect English, but her Hebrew, she had the best Hebrew of the entire Sunday school class. So all of us were like really not very happy about this situation, that this girl was like not only gorgeous but brilliant, and then she had the most beautiful voice out of anyone, and she could sing Torah, and after that like the rabbi would always ask her to do it, which like in my world was cool. And then when we're 14, we're still going to the same school together, and Ellen is like editor of the yearbook cool, and I'm like artsy, smoking in the back cool, and still we're friends. And then when we're 15, Ellen gets diagnosed with leukemia, and it's bad. It's really bad. And so she wanted to talk to the rabbi about what she was going through, but it was like weird to be alone with just you and the rabbi, of course. And as a rabbi, I always understand now the awkwardness of that. So I went, and we started in the rabbi's office studying, and then sometimes during her chemo treatment, she'd be in there for a long time, and so he would go and he would drive me, and she would ask all these questions. And for me, at 15, I'm watching Torah sort of come to life about what it means to be alive and what our tradition has to say about that. And I, at the same time, am watching a young girl die and asking all the questions that we shouldn't have to ask. And she turned 16, and I decided to go all out. And I'm living in Seattle, so this is Seattle, early 90s. So I call Soundgarden up on the phone, and I'm like, "Hey, I have this friend, and she's sick, and she loves music. Would you come?" And they totally came, just so you know. And right after that concert, she goes into remission. She does really well. And so I go to summer camp, and I go down to Southeast Oregon, and I'm backpacking, and I'm not a great backpacker, but like I embrace nature, I'm feeling good, and I get off the bus, and I'm disgusting, and my mom meets me, and she hugs me anyways, and we go see a movie in the air condition, and we get out, and there's, it's like back in pagers, my mom was paged, and so we go to a phone, and we call, and it's Ellen's mom, and she was in the hospital, that something had happened, and so we rushed to the hospital. And again, I'm just like in shorts and this t-shirt right off this trail, and we walk in, and it just felt like it was filled with 1,000 adults crying. But we go in anyways. And her mom says, come, Miriam, come lay in the bed with her. And I was like, okay, I'll lay in the bed, and everyone's crying and crying. And then she dies. And in our tradition, you can't talk about how to prepare for death until it's happened. And then once it happened, we have to get really, really busy because we have to do it really, really fast. And you never leave a body alone because the soul's around it. And so all the adults get up almost, it felt like immediately, but it could have been hours, like I don't know. And they get up and they leave the room, and the rabbi hands me this Tanakh, hands me this Torah, and he's like, "Miriam, you gotta sit here. You know these Psalms already. You gotta sit here with her while we go talk about arrangements," because they weren't planning for a death. She was gonna be okay. And so all the adults leave the room, and I got out of the bed at this point because it was gross. And so I'm like staring at her, at this friend, and I start reading the Psalms in Hebrew, but I could only do it for like 15 minutes, which I still would think would be a long time. So then I switched to English, and I'm wondering, like, does it still count if it's in English? Like, will God still listen the same way? Is it still Jewish if it's in English? And then it feels like they've just been gone for forever, and I can't do the Psalms anymore, so I just start talking. And then I run out of words. I think losing the words is actually the part of the story that made me a rabbi. Because I realized in that moment, the adults and God, Ellen, me, none of us knew any more than the other person. And that breathing, which is what I was doing in that silence, was another name for God. The Yud, He, Vav, He is just that. And so I just breathed. Silence is always shaped by what it's adjacent to. And so are we. So we started up high on the mountain, and now we're among the people, all of us standing together. You are much cooler than we are with your ice cream. So we hope it continues to nourish you as we begin this next set. And we're starting with Ki Ata Imadi, which comes from a line in Psalm 23. That we're moving from that journey of shock revelation into the journey of comfort and triumph, possibility, and ending with blessing. So that's sort of the journey we're in. So we're down in the valley right here. And so that line that's coming out of Psalm 23 is, I shall fear no ferocity, for you are with me. So Ki Ata Imadi, right, is because you are with me, because you are with me. So it's the parallel relationship to you are not alone.
shade of its branches. Bring the high things low, make the low things high. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav.
As many of you know, there's a Japanese art form that when you see a whole vessel, it is beautiful. But when it becomes cracked or shattered, you fill in those cracks kitigui with gold. And somehow it becomes even more valuable. Instead of just having it like this, it's more valuable with its gold instead of making it into a ring or into other kinds of jewelry to infuse it back into the broken thing. And to me, that art form feels a lot like one of the stories we tell about the creation of the world from the Jewish mystical tradition, about the shattering of vessels. Written by the Ari, it's part of the mystical world of seeing it, that when God decided that, well, in the very beginning, all the world was filled with God's presence. And when God made a choice to create the world that we live in, God had to make room. And so God contracted God's self and breathed out a dark mass. And then when God said, Vayor, let there be light, there was light inside that darkness. And the light was so big, it had to get divided up into 10 different vessels. And then they were sent off into the creation like ships whose cargo was primordial light. And if they had made it, the world would have been perfect. But instead, there was a shattering. And the light went everywhere, like sand, like seeds, like stars. And that's when we come in. That our job, according to our tradition, my tradition, the Jewish tradition, is that we're supposed to be gathering up that light, collecting those holy sparks, and that sparks have been hidden in all kinds of places, and they're actually held captive. And it's a release from that slavery, that containment, to find light, sometimes in nature, sometimes in suffering, every time among other human and living beings. And then when we gather as much as we can, because we're limited, then we believe that God will come in and sweep up all the rest. And we will be gathered back somehow, shattered, golden, and together.
May every stumble become a dance. May every struggle become a new romance. If every broken bone's your teacher in a stained and tattered robe, then every burning bridge a candle to light your way home. I hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love, hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love. May every stutter become a new haiku. May every sorrow become a sacred blues. And when your road begins to narrow and the serpent nips your heel, raise your voice in holy laughter like a scepter forged in steel. I hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love, hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love. May you create more than you destroy, despise much less than you enjoy. Light your cigar at the altar fire. May you never get all that you desire. May your borders stay unguarded when the winds of change collide. On your lips a word of welcome for the traveler outside. Cause every sinner has a future. The best queens reject the crown. Sometimes you can't see the moon till the barns burn down. Hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love, hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love, hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love, hope you radiate mercy, hope you radiate love.
Before we send you out, we hope you felt that was a blessing. We want to first thank all of you for taking this journey into mystery with us and jamming all with us and just accepting this with the purity that's offered. I want to just thank this incredible group of musicians staged here in the middle. This is Josh, we love you, and Matt. passion. Of course, we had to have all our cameras and our sound together, so thank you to Kevin for making sure the sound worked this whole time, to Brenna and Paolo also for making your sound and all these tech things possible, and a thank you to Jenny for getting all that amazing ice cream and having set up and doing that. John Bunyan for writing lyrics without knowing you're writing lyrics. To Michael and to Maddie for making this part of it for the next group of people available so that we can live a little bit in this way. And also, a lot of this music we have recorded, and you can always find it on Apple, iTunes, what else? You can just write Shabbatish and you can find it so you can keep jamming out to it. Or you can go on the YouTube channel and watch it too. And of course, thank you to Rich Rodinsky, whose studios this are, and write all of this music, all of this us. In our friendship, we made each other Jubus. Boo Jews. We flipped back and brought each other such truth and acceptance of this. So thank you to all of you. And we'll end with, we want you to sing along with this one, if you can, right? For the light, and the light grow.
Ooh, delicate. Yeah, you can sing along on the chorus. There's a sliver of moon climbing over the hill. The night's too big to swallow, it's too tough to kill. You're too footsore to run, and you're too worn to fight. So you close your eyes and wait for the light. You sat in the garden with your back to the wall, afraid to sit pretty, afraid to stand tall. You ate of the fruit, still you don't know what's right. So you close your eyes and wait for the light. Wait for the light, wait for the light, like a babe in the cradle with the shutters drawn tight. When the oil in your lamp won't last the night, you just close your eyes and wait for the light. In a fallow field waiting till spring is in sight. Oh, you sag and you sing and you break in the night, 'cause your heart is a sparrow, it's too tired to take flight. So you close your eyes and wait for the light. Wait for the light, wait for the light. Close your eyes and wait for the light. When you hear the chain creaking and the collar seems tight, you just close your eyes and wait for the light. Wait for the light, wait for the light. Close your eyes and wait for the light. Through the smoke of a battle, when there's no land in sight, you just close your eyes and wait for the light. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you. Good night.